Welcome to Talking Bengals, a Bengals site made by the fans for the fans. Check out Talking Bengals on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout, and follow Talking Bengals on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Talking Bengals. Let's join the conversation. Hello and welcome to Talking Bengals, episode 19. Should be fun this week getting into it. We've got some new topics we're going to cover, a little bit new format, and also do our 50th year reflections and everybody's favorite segment, Roast It or Boast It. So, Nick, how you doing this week?
Doing all right this week. I got a busy week coming up. How about you, Case?
Yeah, always in that grind, working never stops till you're dead, they say, but at least we get a little time out here for half an hour to discuss our favorite football team, so that helps to make everything a little bit better. So, one thing I saw this week in an interview that I found interesting was Jeremy Hill was talking about how optimistic he is about this upcoming year, and, he doesn't feel like, having all this new burden anyway, which is, good. You want to hear him say the company line. But I was kind of shocked to hear that, considering that I think the Bengals drafted a guy that's going to take his job. What do you think, Nick?
I mean, I like his positive outlook, um, but like you said, I think Joe Mixon's going to take his job. I mean, as long as we can get this whole signing and money and all that out of the way, and I think Joe Mixon, as long as he keeps his head on straight, will flat out take Jeremy Hill's job. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that.
So, I agree with you 100%. That kind of segues us into our new segment for this week, which is segment we're going to call Breakout or Bust. We're going to be looking at, either rookie players or guys coming in their second year, but really the first year, or just like to see, around, or can we just go ahead and call them a bust and move on? So with the Jeremy Hill conversation, the first player I'd like to discuss is Joe Mixon. And I think he's absolutely going to be a breakout. I think, he's going to do well on the field. I can't promise anything off the field, but he's going to do well on the field, and he's actually going to overtake Jeremy Hill. Gio, I don't think is going to be 100% this year. So Mixon's going to be an all-around versatile back and can make things happen. What do you got?
I think Joe Mixon is going to break out this year. I as long as his head stays on straight, I'm going to continue to say that he's going to break out. I mean, just quite simply, he's the best back that was in the draft. The only reason he went as late as he did to the Bengals was the fact of his off-field antics. As long as he can keep his off the field antics to nothing, I think he's a breakout. I think as long as he stays out of jail or stays out of the media and just focuses on football and his family, I think he'll be doing fine. I think he'll break out, and I think he'll have a great year. And like I said, I think he'll take Jeremy Hill's, spot with ease. I just don't see any problems with him.
Well, I say no. So Mixon, yeah, he's going to do pretty well. Hopefully, stay out of trouble. But we'll move on to a different guy. We're going to go a little bit out of the order from what we talked about originally. But let's go to last year's first round draft pick before we go to this year's. William Jackson III. What do you think?
William Jackson the third. Let's see. Oh, wrong player. Well, cornerback style, and he's quick. I mean, he can find the ball while it's in the air. I just don't know. I just don't know if I want to give him a breakout. I mean, I didn't really hear his name too much last year. Um, I mean, I don't know. I'm more tempted to say bust than anything. But I mean, just looking at his speed, that's good. I mean, his speed's good, and he can jump, he can play the football, but can he do it in the games? And that's what we're really looking at, is whether or not he can do it on the field, when it matters. So I don't know. I guess I'm gonna have to say bust on him.
Well, I mean, he's coming off injured reserve. He was on injured reserve all last season, and I have to just try to be optimistic here because I'm really worried about the secondary. So I'm going to say Breakout. I mean, you got Pac-Man, who he's past his prime to begin with. He's an on the field. He's pretty decent on the field, except when he loses his head and gets a personal foul or unsportsmanlike conduct. But I mean, you got Pac-Man, you got Draker Patrick, and then there's really nobody. So I mean, I'm really just hoping William Jackson III can have that year, have that great breakout season. So we have another cornerback to be excited about because I know everybody's like, oh well, Patrick's a top tier corner, he's the number one corner. I'm still not buying it. I've not seen enough consistency from Kirkpatrick to really be excited about the way he's played. So I think William Jackson III, he's a ball hawk. He can get after people. He can be a shutdown corner if he stays healthy. That's why we took him in the first round. He was in the Bengals mentality at that point. It was, best player available, best player available, best player available. So if he was the best player available at the number 20, 21 spot in the draft, wherever the Bengals were that year, then you got to take him, and you took him for a reason. So he's got to pan out, I'm hoping. I know that's not always worked out well with, other people that we may mention later on in this list. But, somebody's got to pan out at cornerback eventually for the Bengals. It just has to happen. So I'm really hoping William Jackson III is that guy. So let's talk about this year's first round draft pick, John Ross. And I don't want to wish anything bad on him, but I'm not sure if I have a feeling that he's going to be that strong. But I'll let you lead it off.
I just say Breakout just because he's our first round draft pick. I mean, I think the Bengals took him for a reason. They obviously saw something that they liked from him. I mean, you don't take someone in the first round that you don't like a lot, and that you think that if you don't think that he's going to be a playmaker on the field, you're not going to take him in the first round. I mean, the Bengals do have a bad history in the first round, but I mean, hopefully he's a breakout. I'm going to stay optimistic on him and say breakout.
I'm really trying to be there with you and be optimistic, but I mean, I just don't know. He's got injury problems right now. I mean, I know he can be a difference maker as far as his speed. And I mean, I keep finding it funny that people keep talking about him as a kick returner. If you drafted a first round kick returner, what is wrong with you? Like, that makes no sense. He's got to be a contributor as a wide receiver, and with his injury issues. And I mean, I just don't know how well his size is going to hold up in the NFL, how much he's actually going to be effective. Is he going to be able to, get off the ball, get off the block, or get off when they try to trap him at the line? So I don't know. I'm gonna say hopefully a breakout because his speed could be a big difference maker. I mean, if AJ Green continues to get double teamed, which going into the season he will, because nobody else has proven they can help. Maybe those when he's single covered, he can burn some people deep, and they can realize, oh great, we can't really just leave this guy wide open either. We got to leave AJ a little bit more open. So that's gonna help the team. So I'm crossing my fingers breakout, but I'm not 100. So let's see. This year's second round, last year's first round, this year's first round. So let's go back to another guy from last year, Tyler Boyd. So sticking with the receivers. What do you think?
I'm going to say bust. I mean, I don't really have much to say about him. I don't think he's the player that we thought we would want from him. I mean, he hasn't really shown anything. So I'm going to say bust.
Well, I mean, there was a few glimmers of hope down the stretch last year, but not a whole lot. And no, he was not the guy I thought they were going to get. I mean, I remember, looking at him pre-draft last year, everybody's talking ball control, and he doesn't drop passes. He has great hands. He's not the fastest guy, but he doesn't drop the ball. He makes plays. And I remember probably in the season 5 or 6 times, especially early, where he was dropping easy catches. I mean, he dropped a touchdown opportunity. I think it was against Pittsburgh, and then he fumbled to lose the game against Pittsburgh, even though I really still would put money on it that was not a fumble, but I'm not an official. I don't make that call. But yeah, he's just not as clutch. At the end of the season, he was not the receiver I was most impressed with for the rookies. So I don't know. I mean, I really hope he can have a breakout year, but with John Ross being drafted in the first round, that makes you wonder what the front office is thinking. Are they thinking that Tyler Boyd's going to just be a slot guy and not really have a whole lot of opportunities, earn that number two receiver spot, and that's why they went ahead and got a guy in the first round? Or well, I'm not really sure what they're thinking. I'm not. It's hard to say bust or breakout. Maybe indifferent, which is not a good thing. So probably leaning more toward a bust because he's not going to have a great year. But at the more positive end of bust, I guess I'd say. So it brings us to the other receiver. So the guy that I was more impressed with than Boyd at the end of last season was Cody Core. Now let's go ahead and lead this one off. He's fast. He's got good size. He was very undervalued last year because he was not a high draft pick. But I always cheer for that underdog player. Marvin Jones was that underdog player coming out in the late rounds. People you just don't expect to pan out. And, sometimes they do. And I'm really hoping that Cody Core is just, he's a grinder. He's hitting the workouts hard. He's doing everything he needs to do to become a better player. So I really hope it works out for him. So I'm definitely going to say breakout, if nothing else, just on a little bit of faith. So breakout for Cody Core.
I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you on the breakout. I mean, guy's 6'3", 205. Yeah, 205. I mean, when he played at Ole Miss, I mean, he was the number two receiver. So, I mean, he's used to being the guy that needs to get open because your number one receiver is getting double covered. I mean, he's already used to that. I think he's going to break out this year. I think it's a good bet on him. I mean, he runs a 4.47 40. I mean, so he's got pretty decent speed, not Joe Mixon speed or anything, but I mean, he's still fast. Or John Ross, my bad. Sorry, J names get me. I mean, and he goes after the ball. He can jump. I mean, the guy can jump through the roof. I mean, his vertical is 31.5. So, I mean, I'm just going to say breakout just based off of his sheer size and willingness just to go get the ball.
So that pretty much takes care of the offensive players on our breakout or bust segment. It's going to bring us to a few more guys on defense. One is another player who missed all of last season, and that's Andrew Billings. So with Billings, I've heard mixed reviews. He was good in college. He would have been a great asset last season. I'm not so sure. I really have just, from what I've seen on him, what I've looked at him, I'm not sold. I'm really not at this point. So hopefully he pans out, but I don't think he will. I think he's going to be one of those guys that after this season will just kind of, fade into obscurity. Because the Bengals, with defensive linemen, the way they use them, unless you're Atkins or Carlos Dozen, you're somebody that's easily replaceable. We can just rotate in, and, live without you. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep over calling Andrew Billings a bust.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I mean, the guy's strong as an ox. I mean, that's what you want. You want somebody who can play the position and be strong and get lower than the guys that are trying to block you. I mean, yeah, he's shorter in the aspect of, lineman, but at the same time, I mean, guy's powerful. He's a heavy weightlifter. I mean, he set a state record for over 2,000 combined pounds on squat, deadlift, and bench. I mean, like I said, the guy's strong as an ox. I think, you get somebody that can teach him some good technique and good planning. I think he could actually develop into a very good nose tackle for us and take over what Petco left behind. I would like to talk about Petco later, but, we'll bring him up later, Case.
Oh, Domata, give him some honors last week, and then we'll have to talk about him again. But the last player I'm going to talk about is actually the oldest and longest standing Bengal on this list. And we're talking about first round draft picks, especially at cornerback, and wondering, WTF on some of them. But it has to go to Darqueze Dennard. Is he gonna? Is he not gonna? I'll let you go first.
Bust. Do I have to say why? I mean, I don't know why we got him back. Bust. I don't want to say anymore. I mean, just bust.
Well, yeah, I mean it's hard to put more faith in the guy. I mean, Drake Kirkpatrick had injury problems at the beginning of his career, but I mean he's actually I wouldn't say top tier. I don't believe he's top tier, but he's at least panned out a little bit. But Darqueze Dennard has barely been able to find the field. I mean, the guy's been injured like year after year after year, and he was actually, if I remember, I was drafted a few spots higher than Kirkpatrick. Maybe I'm thinking of that in reverse. But everyone's like, yeah, he's going to make an impact now. He's ready to go on the field. But even when he's healthy, it's like he's not at all the player they thought he was going to be. I mean, I'm not sure if you know the injuries just took a toll, and that time away from the game just really hurt his abilities. But he is not even close to being the player that they needed him to be, or close to the player that he should be. So I don't think he's going to work. I think they're going to realize that they made a big mistake bringing him, like extending his contract for that extra season. It's just not going to work out. But hopefully it does, and that's the optimistic view. But realistically, no, you're going to be having Drake Kirkpatrick and William Jackson III as your top two cornerbacks with Pac-Man playing in the nickel. So definitely a bust. And with the sour note there, let's move on into something a little bit more happy. We're in our 50th year or 50th season reflection segment of the show. And this week I gave it a lot of thought about who I actually wanted to talk about. And I don't think we could have gone with a more deserving player. We're going with Bengals great Tim Krumrie. Now, I know we say we're trying to stay away from the superstar players. And I mean, for the Bengals, especially during that 88 Super Bowl run, he was a superstar. But I feel like he's one of those guys that gets forgotten about or overlooked. He's only remembered by a lot of fans outside the Bengals for that horrific injury that he suffered during Super Bowl 23. So I figured we'd give him a little bit of airtime because he was a great Bengal and did a lot of great things for the franchise. So, Nick, what do you got?
First of all, you got to recognize the guy just simply playing an entire career with one team. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is faithful to one team throughout his entire career. I mean, you just don't see that anymore. I mean, maybe Tom Brady. I don't know. I mean, I can't really name too many players that played for just one team. Thinking back, maybe John Elway. I mean, it might be the only other one I can think of. The only team I ever knew they played for was Denver for John. So, I mean, Tim Krumrie, obviously he was a playmaker on the field. He went to 2 Pro Bowls, or selected 2 Pro Bowls. He helped lead the Bengals to 2 Super Bowls. Unfortunately, we had to play San Francisco and both of them, and we unfortunately lost. So, but I mean, so unfortunate he broke his ankle in the Super Bowl. I think the best part of the stories that I was reading about him was he didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay in the locker room to watch the game. I mean, you're talking about a team player right there. That's a guy who wanted to be there for the team, to be there to cheer the team on. I don't know. I find it few and far between to find guys like that are that team oriented. I think it's awesome. I mean, the guy is obviously a great guy that, I think we could benefit from having him maybe on the coaching staff, just teaching these young guys how to, just come into the league and really come out and try to perform. I mean, even his last season, he put up some pretty darn good numbers. So, I mean, you're looking at a guy who you just don't really see much of anymore.
So just one quick fact check. He did not play in the 81, like the first Super Bowl for the Bengals. He did play in the 88 Super Bowl. That's when he got that horrific ankle injury that nobody really talks about as much. They always talk about Joe Theismann's and, oh, it was terrible and ugly. But the announcer during the 88 Super Bowl said, yep.
I'd like to apologize for that.
All is forgiven, Nicholas. All is forgiven. But, the announcer actually said they did the replay, and he's like, I don't think anybody wants to see that one again because it was such a horrific and maiming injury. But, I mean, yeah, Krumrie was just a classy guy and a hard worker. I mean, he was definitely, just a grinder out there. He had over 1,000 career tackles. He had over 34 and a half career sacks. And he was just a tough guy. And, I mean, I actually remember watching him play a few times when I was younger. I mean, I had those season tickets when I was a kid. And yeah, he was just a tough player. The big number 69 come in there and just knock people's teeth out. And the probably the biggest memory I have of him playing was actually his last game. They gave him I think it was a Harley. I remember they brought the motorcycle onto the field there at Old Synergy slash Riverfront, and they gave him this big thing at halftime, good spiel. And then he rode the motorcycle off, and that was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. I was what, like 5 or 6 at the time, I guess 94, yeah, about 6. So it was just one of the coolest things that I had ever seen, and it just stuck with me. I mean, all these years later, I still remember that. And I still remember watching him play, and just it's one of those guys career Bengal. The only one I can really think of is Anthony Munoz, career Bengal. But most of the ones who had long careers have ended up going other places, doing other things. So, it's a special thing to be able to talk about a guy who's a career Bengal. So hats off to you, Tim Krumrie. You are our 50th season reflection for this week. And we hope whatever you're doing now, you're doing great things with it. And we're going to go ahead and move on to everybody's favorite topic of this, or favorite topic of the show. And this week's topics is roasted or boasted. Went a little bit of some interesting topics this week. The first one is the Bengals kicking woes will continue in 2017. Nick, roasted or boasted?
I'm going to roast that because I think that the kicker that we drafted is going to do well. I may be some form of crazy optimistic person, but I mean, you have to be some form of optimistic if you're going to be a Bengals fan. You got to look up to something. So hopefully I'm right, but I'm going to roast that. I think the kicking woes will cease this season because I think we got a pretty good kicker. He's got a pretty good track record through college, and I would say that his track record speaks for itself. So roasting it all the way, Case.
I'm going to boast it. Early in the season, especially, I think there's going to be some struggles, some big kicks that are missed. I mean, I don't know. It's just I have a feeling, he's not played on this kind of stage before. I do think that Elliott's going to be the guy that wins the job. But the last time I remember the Bengals drafting a kicker was good old Neil Rackers. And that was just such a great asset. The guy blew more kicks than anybody I can remember. So I think Elliott will probably struggle to begin with. I hope the Bengals stick with him for a little while. Hopefully he doesn't miss any, game-winning kicks that cost us, possibly a playoff berth. But I think he'll struggle a little bit early in the season. But the longer the season goes on, if they empower him, give him a little bit of, confidence and some faith in him, I think he can end up being a pretty good kicker. But yeah, initially I'm going to have to boast it, and I don't think he'll do well at the beginning of the season. They'll probably put him out there on a few tough kicks. He may miss a couple of them, maybe get in his head a little bit. But as the year progresses and the season goes on, I think it'll pan out. But for right now, I'm going to say boasting that the kicking woes will be there at least initially this season. So a topic I keep hearing, with all the weapons around Andy Dalton, he's going to just have a great season, and this is going to make 2015 look like a joke. He's going to just be the best he's ever been. So with that in mind, let's just let's play to that and go down the rabbit hole a little bit. So Andy Dalton will finish in the top 3 for NFL MVP voting. Roasted or boasted?
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to roast it. People like Tom Brady too much, and they like Ryan too much from Atlanta, and they like Andrew Luck way too much. So I'm definitely gonna have to roast it. I don't think that Andy Dalton could be the best. I don't think Andy Dalton could come out and be the best quarterback in the NFL this year and still get the MVP for the quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think that even top 3 NFL MVP period. I mean, there's too many players out there right now that have shown that they can come out and they can perform and they can bring it every day for every down they play, and they make a difference every time they're on the field. So, I mean, to put him into the top 3 for the NFL MVP, I think would be – I think it'd be an absurd thing to say just to I mean, just going based off his track record.
Well, there's nothing wrong with wishful thinking, but that's all this is wishful thinking. So yeah, you got to roast it. I just don't believe that Andy Dalton is an A plus quarterback. He's an A minus quarterback at his best. Typically a B plus kind of guy. And those guys don't win MVPs. I mean, unfortunately, this is not the old NFL where you can be a fairly average quarterback and win an MVP just because your team's doing really well. I mean, you got guys out there, throwing 40 touchdowns a year, and I just don't think Dalton's going to be able to keep up with that. Even with the great cast around him, I just don't think he's going to be able to put up with that. Something's going to be lacking, whether it's the yards or the touchdowns or the quarterback percentage or whatever other silly stat that they're worried about. Because the only stat that matters is wins. But I just don't think even if he had the best year, they're going to look away. Like you said, there's the Bradys, the Aaron Rodgers, the Matt Ryans, all these other guys that they're just not going to pay attention to Andy Dalton. And you know what? He fits in really well, actually. The more we go on with this, 50-year reflections, I think of these, blue collar guys that we're trying to honor this season. I think Andy Dalton is a blue collar player. He's never going to be, that top tier prima donna, that guy that everybody's like, he is just a football god. That's just not Andy Dalton, and it never will be, and that's okay. You know what? If he wins the Super Bowl as a blue-collar quarterback, I am 100% okay with that. So we got roasted, but you know what? I got faith in Andy Dalton. So, Nick, what's our last topic for the week?
I just wanted to give you a little joke here. Maybe in about 50 years from now, we can do the 100th anniversary. Look back and give him a little bit of talking about. What do you think?
Man, if I'm still here for the 100th year reflection, whew, I'm going to be a very angry and bitter old guy. And the only way I'm talking about Andy Dalton is if he has at least one Super Bowl ring.
I just figured I'd throw a little bit of lightheartedness into it. But I mean, my choice for the week, pretty much it goes towards Pecco. Just him leaving. I mean, you're seeing it in the community, just his impact that he had. I mean, Kid County Schools honored him. I mean, his kids went to the schools. I mean, he invested in this community, in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. I mean, he invested in the area. I mean, it was just something that you don't really see a whole lot, from a whole lot of big name players. I consider Pecco a big name player because, I mean, everybody knew, and you saw the long hair, at the nose tackle or lining up right inside the guard. You knew Pecco's in the game; he's going to make a play. So, I mean, to me, Pecco was a big name player, and see him go, it's saddening, and it's really starting to hit home. Seeing him actually uprooting his family and having to move him out, at the end of the school year, and especially with school year ending here tomorrow for Boone County schools. So I mean, like I said, it's sad. It's sad to see Pecco go. I just, I just feel like we missed out on something that was probably still needed here, and I think Pecco could have done a whole lot to, I mean, bring Billings into the arena. I think he could have led him to probably be just as good as Pecco or better. But like I said, we're missing out.
Well, yeah, I would agree. And I read an article this week by a different Bengals site, and I was not very happy with them. They tried to get people to get angry at Pecco. Like, oh, he's now bad mouthing the Bengals. All that he said, because I read the article, because I'm like, that sounds out of character. All he said was, in Cincinnati, in the locker room, all we talked about was trying to win a playoff game, which is probably all they talk about is trying to win a playoff game. He says, but in Denver, they talk about wanting to win a Super Bowl. Well, no crap. They've won 3 Super Bowls. They don't have that get over the hump of winning a playoff game. So you can't be mad at him for that. You're just trying to, get people to, it's clickbait, and I got sucked into it. But we're kind of going to wrap this up with our final thoughts here. So, I mean, just leave Pecco alone. If your stories are going bad and you can't get anybody to click on your stuff, try being a better writer. Try finding something that's a little bit more interesting to talk about. Because, don't just slander a guy who is great for the community and great for the franchise. Nick, you got any more final thoughts?
I'm just going to feed into your final thoughts, man. I mean, just simply, it seems like the media, the more and more they're, on slow news days, all they try to do is, sit there and, just slanderize good people. I mean, just for example, Pecco. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy was a tremendous man who used his platform to help a community, to better people. I mean, and you try to slander someone like that. I mean, you lose a lot of credibility when you do something like that to people. I don't know. I just say my final thoughts are is just be truthful and only say what's true. And obviously, what they said about Pecco is not.
Lay off, don't tie, do the right thing. And that's going to do it for us this week. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, and Buzzsprout. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We are Talking Bengals, and have a wonderful week. Hooday!
Hooday!